Cannabis sativa, the marijuana plant. It's been in America's history for as long as the Europeans have. Hi, I'm Jace Craig, and I'll be giving you a detailed look at the cannabis plant's influence on and in American culture. We'll be looking at how it was used in colonial America, why and when it was outlawed, and how it affects society today. Let's start from the beginning. The cannabis plant came to America with the Spaniards in 1545, then became a major cash crop in Jamestown in 1611, along with tobacco. It was used for rope and cloth and any other fibrous things that you could think of. Well, the first marijuana-related law in America was passed in 1619, requiring farmers to grow hemp on their land. It became so important that it gradually became legal tender to encourage further growth. It could even be used to pay taxes. However, if you didn't grow hemp when they were in a recession, you could be fined or put in jail. Around the middle of the 19th century, actually, the U.S. Census recorded over 8,000 hemp plantations. Now, to be considered a plantation, you have to have 2,000 acres or more of land that is being used for farming. It's a lot of hemp. However, starting in the second half of the 19th century, industrial hemp began to fade out and recreational marijuana began to rise. By 1890, cannabis had been phased out as a major cash crop by cotton in the southern states. Cotton was much cheaper to process, as hemp had to be processed by hand. The 1920s is when recreational use really began to rise, though it was primarily restricted to jazz musicians and people in show business. At this point, however, marijuana was still not considered a threat. There are marijuana clubs in just about every major city that were called tea pads, where you could go and smoke the marijuana and use it as hashish. It was even used in the medical field. However, in the 1930s, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Narcotics began to fund campaigns which would demonize marijuana. Actually, much like this one that I have here. It reads, "Beware, young and old, people in all walks of life." This, and it's a picture of a marijuana cigarette, may be handed to you by the friendly stranger. It contains the killer drug, marijuana, a powerful narcotic in which lurks murder, insanity, and death. Warning. It is widely skewed to be a bad drug and crazily believed to be a gateway drug, that all people who smoked marijuana would go on to harder core drugs. Well, despite the betrayal against marijuana, hemp still had important roles to play in the 20th century. During World War II, the American government launched the Hemp for Victory campaign, in which they paid farmers for a surplus of hemp to be used as rope and canvas on naval ships. During the 60s, marijuana became a symbol of rebellion against authority. Students and hippies alike used it to show their dislike of the Vietnam War. And it was used in a major way for the protests. However, the Controlled Substances Act of 1970 was what really put the final nail in the coffin. Before this, many states had begun outlawing marijuana, but the CSA of 1970 classified marijuana as a Schedule I drug, along with heroin and LSD. It made no distinction between hemp and marijuana, which have wildly different purposes. Now, when Reagan and the first Bush, their administration brought in the zero-tolerance era on marijuana. This carried heavy fines for anyone even carrying the substance, let alone selling or producing it. So in conclusion, hemp has had a major impact and a strong effect on America's history, starting with the colonies and going all the way to today. In fact, in the mid-20th century, it was a vital source of fiber, and it's still provided for some hemp today. In 2010, however, the U.S. federal government spent over $15 billion on the war of drugs at a rate of approximately $500 per second, pulling up mostly hemp and not the smokable marijuana. Now, I'll leave it to you, but do you really think the war is worth it?